This year marks the 50th anniversary of Maryland's EMS system. In 1973, Governor Marvin Mandel issued an executive order creating the first statewide EMS system in the country. That executive order, in fact, was the culmination of many years of effort. Forward-thinking leaders had worked tirelessly to champion the idea that both lives and livelihoods could be saved if only there were coordinated, systematic efforts to respond to illness, injury, acute shock, and cardiac arrest. Dr. R. Adams Cowley, a cardiothoracic surgeon with a keen interest in the management of shock, spearheaded that effort.
Dr. Cowley's time as a U.S. Army surgeon in post-World War II Europe taught him the critical importance of speed in saving lives in the battle against shock. In 1961, the Army awarded Cowley a grant for further study of shock. He established the nation's first clinical shock trauma unit, a modest 2-bed unit at the University of Maryland Hospital in Baltimore. Through intensive clinical studies, patient treatment, and monitoring, Cowley developed the concept of the golden hour, the period of up to 60 minutes following an injury in which the immediate delivery of definitive care becomes crucial to a trauma patient's survival. His concept was getting the severely ill or injured patient to be seen by the right people at the right place in the right amount of time. Cowley concluded that pre-hospital care was vital to the golden hour's success.
There seemed to be a time period where you've got to really do something for this patient, whether he's out in the field or whether he's in transit to a hospital or whether he's in the hospital. You can't wait 60 minutes. And that 60 minutes is a golden hour.
Maryland's EMS system continued to evolve throughout the 1980s. The Maryland Way Manual, the first iteration of the Maryland Medical Protocols for Emergency Medical Services, was developed to help ensure statewide standardization for pre-hospital care. 1986 saw the creation of a research arm, the National Study Center for Trauma and Emergency Medical Systems. Senate Bill 481 created the EMS clinical program and the University of Maryland at Baltimore Field program. In 1987, Maryland was one of 8 states to receive federal funding for the development of an EMS for Children program.
Over time, increased patient volume prompted the need for a separate dedicated shock trauma center building. The R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center was dedicated in 1989 as the first freestanding trauma center in the country. In 1993, House Bill 1222 separated the R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center, MIMS field programs, and the National Study Center for Trauma and EMS. The legislation created the State EMS Board and the statewide EMS Advisory Council. This legislation gave the EMS Board regulatory authority and oversight of the statewide EMS system. The legislation created MIMS as an independent state agency with dedicated funding through vehicle registration surcharge that supplied financial resources for MIMS, the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute, the Maryland State Police Aviation Command, the Amos Fund, and the R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center. That same year, MIMS also established an Office of EMS for Children, as well as the Pediatric Emergency Medical Advisory Committee. Other highlights of the 1990s include the move to evidence-based protocols by consensus, the creation of the position of State Pediatric Medical Director in 1992, as well as the appointment of 5 voluntary regional pediatric medical directors, a strategic plan adopted in 1995 that provided direction to creating structure for the evolving statewide EMS system. And MIMS, under the leadership of Dr. Bass, began to formalize the system, created the structure, hired the staff, and began to develop standards for trauma, perinatal, burn, eye, hand, etc. that became regulation. MIMS began licensing and certifying EMS clinicians. And the relocation of MIMS headquarters to its current facility, the John M. Murphy Building in Baltimore, in 1998.
The 21st century brought further advancements to Maryland's EMS system, including, in the 2000s, a NHTSA report evaluating the efficiency of the state's EMS system, and the MIMS Online Training Center, which expanded continuing education opportunities for EMS clinicians. Prior to 911, MIMS developed a strategic plan to respond to terrorist attacks. Then it happened, and MIMS and MDH convened Maryland hospitals on next steps to respond in the event of another attack. This effort laid the groundwork for EMS to respond to unforeseen events. The House EMS System Work Group examined the needs and laid the foundation for many system improvements.
In 2008, MIMS became the lead agency for Safe Kids Maryland and established the Maryland Risk Watch community in 2004, creating an injury prevention coalition for Maryland children and their families. In the 2010s, EMEDS replaced the old EMAs DOTS form. We also had the creation of the Medical Orders for Life-Sustaining Care, or MOLST form, that replaced the old DNR. The Maryland State Police replaced their fleet of Dauphine helicopters with the AW-139. And EMT clinicians began to be held to national testing standards, raising the standards for our clinicians throughout Maryland. A major renovation and upgrade was made to the facilities at SysCom and EMRC to enhance communication throughout the state. And in the late 2010s, we initiated our statewide program of pediatric EMS champions embedded in every EMS jurisdiction throughout Maryland.
Mobile integrated health initiatives, Stop the Bleed program, a new consensus-based strategic plan, Maryland EMS Vision 2030, which provides a roadmap into the next decade. Statewide EMS response to COVID-19, creation of the Critical Care Coordination Center, C4, and Pediatric C4, Stroke Smart State Resource Center, and Blood on Board of the Maryland State Police Medevac aircrafts.
Today, EMS is where emergency care begins. In 2022, Maryland EMS, delivered by 29 jurisdictional agencies, answered nearly 1 million calls for help, and safely transported more than 530,000 patients of all ages to definitive medical care, including the 2 pediatric specialty centers, 14 perinatal centers, 39 stroke centers, 24 cardiac intervention centers, 2 burn centers, an eye trauma center, a hand and upper extremity trauma center, and 9 trauma centers. Each of these is a vital component of Maryland's EMS system, standing at the ready to deliver the most appropriate and sophisticated care to patients in need. At this core, however, the heart and soul of Maryland's EMS system are nearly 20,000 career and volunteer EMS clinicians. Each one represents 50 years of evolution, embodying a spirit and living a legacy to improve the quality of life for Marylanders through advanced pre-hospital emergency care.
So, I like to say that the Maryland EMS system is probably the greatest story ever told when it comes to saving lives in the state of Maryland. It's incredibly unique. Not only unique in our country, but probably in the world.
Time is critical. You lose your life because of time. You lose your life if somebody can't clear the airway and have a tube down there expanding your lungs and you can't breathe. You lose your life if you have cardiac arrest and there's not the proper equipment or the properly trained people to accomplish this function. So time is critical.
In over 50 years of Maryland's EMS system, we have counted on the illumination from thousands, hundreds of thousands of stars. Here are just 50 of those Maryland EMS stars.